Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a feedback session for the last Patreon challenge and talk about the next one. So I'm just going to quickly talk about the next one. Basically, I wanted to do a product design challenge, and the idea, you can go read through the brief yourself, but basically the idea is in the future, like 2031, 10 years from now roughly, what would be a useful product? And I tried to include a little ridiculous story to kind of give people some ideas about what they could do. But, it can be really anything. You could consider making a sci-fi mask, some sort of human brain interface device, fake limbs, flying cars. Like, there's a million things that you could do, but try and think about what would be something that people would want to use. What would and who would use it and why? What problem does it solve, for example? So, maybe try and think what would be a problem we'd have in the future, and then try to solve that problem already. Yeah, and then like usual, prize will be a mask and a t-shirt, and then Instagram shoutouts for all participants, but just message me in DMs so I can remember that. And just, post it pretty quickly without having to go through Discord and save all of the photos and all that. So yeah, DM me after, and I'll get that taken care of. Deadline, February 15th. And yep, like usual, I care more about the design of the object in terms of form, usability, etc., rather than the presentation because it's like what, a month and a half. Not everybody has time to do both well. So for me, it's most important that you have, you know, good design. All right, so I'm just gonna quickly show some of the presentations. So we have somebody that I used to work with, John, and he is a beast. And this is his presentation. Then we've got Cody Freeman's axe. And then we have from Sir Astani, we have this sword. Then from Christian, we have this. And then Biswa, we have a karambit knife. So, and then Stefan, we have a triple bladed DNA extractor. So I'm going to go through and break these down. Let me open them up, and we'll just start with John. And I have to say, yeah, so I worked with this guy, and he's one of the best artists that I know and modelers. And yeah, I don't really know. I'll have to try and come up with some sort of feedback because, you know, I like your work a lot, so. I guess if I'm going to be picky, I feel like the inner metal piece for the blade feels a bit thick and a bit chunky and blocky. But in general, there's a lot of things that I really like. Like, for example, I love the flow through the design. I love that, it goes up and then it goes down. It just has such a nice flow. Like, none of the angles are boring. They all have some sort of velocity. There's a nice mix, yeah, between like hard and soft. I mean, I really have so few critiques. I mean, I guess the only thing that kind of bothers me, and I just maybe don't understand the reasoning behind it, is this sci-fi piece. But maybe there's some sort of function to it. I just don't really like how these parts don't line up and it looks like it's from a different design. I think that if you were to, instead of having, because right now all of the lines terminate like this, uh, they terminate here on these lines, and these lines continue here. I would much rather see just like something simple. So for example, continue on maybe one of the fillets from the other one. I think this would have been a much nicer for me personally. Just being able to see these parts continue, because I start to get really confused when I see this part. I don't understand if it's folding or like what's the function behind it. I'm not sure. And then it kind of overlaps this plastic here. So yeah, in general, that's really my only feedback. Like I love the grip a lot. I love the forms that you chose. I love the overall feeling of the design. I mean, yeah, I don't have a lot of critique. I like that it makes a shark. But I love the I don't even know if there's a name for something like that, but I like this design. I like your screw designs. Like looks great. Um Unfortunately, I don't really have much more feedback on this one, but yeah, it looks good. And for everybody watching this, I would go check out this guy's ArtStation. I'll have a link to it, but he is one of the best modelers I ever met in my life, and a lot of the things that I value in modeling and bevel treatments and all of that is I got from studying your models. So especially a lot of these ones, and especially this rocket launcher. The viewports are my favorite thing in the world. Especially the side view viewport. Where is that? Yeah. Anyways, go check out this guy's work. It's awesome. All right. Yeah, and sorry I don't have much more feedback. I mean, I don't. Let me see if there's anything. Yeah, I guess just the metal and that part are my only real two complaints. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of this thing here, this value change. It just seems a bit too sci-fi, but I mean, I guess if it was like laser engraved or something, I don't know, or some sort of a wrap, maybe it makes sense. I don't really know. But in general, that part feels a little bit weird to me. But yeah, looks great. All right. Biswa, if I say your name correctly. So I don't know, maybe your computer struggles a little bit, but I would suggest just turn on anti-aliasing for your viewport screenshots. It'll make it look way better. Um, Overall, I think it looks a lot cleaner modeling wise than your previous ones. Like I see progression. As far as design though, there's a few little things that I don't like. I like the overall shape, like it looks like a karambit. I don't know how to say it properly, but yeah, this type of knife. Um, I'm not gonna give it a huge bit of critique as far as design function, but I'll give it more like a visuals and aesthetics kind of critique. So I would say places like this where you have kind of like weird bevels. Like for some reason, and maybe I guess it's like a volume change because I can see that this pushes inward. But in general, like this bevel here has kind of a weird line. Like this line kind of goes outwards. And I would just try and make sure that when you have stuff like this, keep it clean. You don't want to have like messy little things going on. Try and watch out for details that are too small. Like zoom out like this and make it whatever the size. Like pretend you're holding this. Make it like hand size and put your hand in front of your monitor. So I'm trying to do that right now. And like that detail is probably 2 millimeters wide. And I think that there's nothing wrong with having small details, but the thing with small details is like, for example, let's say you have a box shape and then I'll do a more detailed thing. I might actually accidentally make something that doesn't work for this example, but I'll try not to. I'll try to make a complex detail because I want to make a point about details. Alright, so let's just assume that I made some sort of like shape like this. And the thing with details, at least in my opinion, is first of all, the smaller a detail is, generally the more simple it should be. That's not always the case, but when it comes to product design, stuff like that, I think that is definitely the case. And a product design or a handheld thing, like the size of the screw is the most telling thing. So anyway, point is, when you're going to do really small details, especially on realistic stuff or semi-realistic, I highly suggest keeping simple details as your small ones, very simple shapes, because simple shapes are easy to read and they're not like, they don't feel like you instantly get what it's about. And when you have a small detail that's too complex, you don't really get it. And uh, this isn't necessarily a very bad example, like it's not super detailed, but anyways, the point is, imagine trying to manufacture this. So if you were to zoom out, you know, this detail is really small. A lot of these little details, some of them, like just mostly these two, I guess, or three, but also the screws. And I just want you to zoom out a little bit, you know, look at some more reference because, let's see. You'll find that if you want to make really nice designs that are handheld, like any type of weapon, the scale of the screws is the most important thing, or at least one of them. Like, oh, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know. Here, let's just look at this for example. So, I mean, having those little tiny screw holes, you know, roughly gives me an idea of what the scale of this object is. And you'll notice that, you know, when you have a smaller object, the scale of the screws is going to be quite obviously much larger. And so in this case, like your screws, first of all, they're two screws at different sizes. And so it's important to have your screws be the same size if they're the same screw, generally, or close, because that's how it would work in real life. And then, yeah, just make sure the scale is correct because at the moment they're just a bit too small. So let me do a little paint over. But before I do that, I'll do a little paint over, but first let me just talk about a few things. So, like you have a lot of hard edges where things shouldn't be hard. So for example, here, here, I guess there's some here, 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 here. This one's impossible, it's okay. But generally these are not. Um, and yeah, so I'm gonna talk about my thoughts on these really quick in a paint over type situation. But generally when you're transitioning forms, like let's say this blade, one of the most cool things that you can do when you have like a bevel, so like let's say this is the side view and this is the bevel, or like this is an edge, right? So we're looking at this from the side. Um, you always want to think about like in Photoshop. I'll actually open Photoshop layer and show you. So this is kind of how I think about a lot of things in art and design. Is like the contour kind of in Photoshop. This is how I picture a lot of stuff. So you think about like what is that contour when the light hits? Is it curved? Is it angled and hard? You know, so these are all of the, this is like the most important way to think about bevels. Anyways, long story short, I prefer oftentimes to do some sort of like more dynamic angle. And I would say that something is dynamic when the center point, or like the lowest point of the curve. So like if we were to divide this, the lowest point would probably be somewhere around here. I mean, it's not the best example, but the idea is that the lowest point is in that 30%. And then besides like having an interesting or dynamic angle, it's like this is nice, soft, and curved. And that gives us a very nice contrast versus this hard point here. So then we can have a smaller bevel at the top and then a big one at the bottom. And so, I mean, I think you could have done this in a lot more places, just trying to have nicer shapes. And I think it'll just make it look a lot nicer. And you also have to remember when stuff is manufactured in real life, oftentimes this is what things will look like because you have to move a drill bit to CNC things. So, for example, CNC metal shape. Just said metal like a British guy. Metal. Yeah, so CNC drill bits. Let's see if we can find one. Let's just watch a video of CNC being made really quick. CNC. Not CBC. CNC. Yeah, so when you watch CNC, you'll notice that there's a drill bit. And drill bits are round, so when you're trying to make a small object, the drill bit will almost always make some sort of round shape. Let's see if we can find something, yeah, like this. And so you'll see that unless it's being cut from like the right angle, it's not easy to make CNC'd things that have hard corners unless it's like, you know, on the bottom of the drill bit. But if it's something that's being cut out, the side of the drill bit will always have, like, for example, rounded corners or something like that. And smaller drill bits obviously let you have harsher corners. So like here you can see the harsh corners are being made, or oh, that's cool. I've never seen that. What the fuck? That's awesome. You guys are gonna have to watch this with me now. Oh my god, that's beautiful. I don't even know what the hell it is. What? This is turning into a reaction video, I guess. What the fuck is this? What is this thing? Oh my god, why? What is it? Ah, yeah, so here's a good example. You can see that when the drill bit made these cuts here, that these areas are round. Now, obviously, it can be smaller on the corners. It can be the minimum thickness is whatever that drill bit is. But in this case, they made it rounder. But yeah, so that's the whole point. Basically, a lot of times, you're not going to have hard points in certain areas when you're CNCing metal. Like you'll have it in the I don't know all the terms for this stuff, but you'll have it basically at the bottom part where the drill bit is, but that's usually it. So anyways, back to this. Fixing this stuff will just make your design look better in general. Try and, you know, bevel these things more. Another example is like here, for example. Like just having some simple bevels here are going to make this shape instantly look really nice because points in your design don't look nice. And you don't want to have them so much. You know, it's okay to have them if you do it in the right way, but it's not easy. And it just helps the eye also to flow around shapes just because it's, you know, it's not these hard angles. And I would just delete these details here. And then like these ones here, I would have made more, first of all, a little bit larger, and I would have made them have curves around them. And they don't have to even be that big. Like you could do, for example, a curve like this. My mouse drawing skills are exemplary. So like you could even have like kind of boxed corners, but they're still round. Like this. But yeah, I don't want to get like into the function of knives and all of that too much. But in general, if you're doing something more like a knife, I would just do a little bit more research into how they work and when you're adding the sci-fi details, because like we all like sci-fi details, but I would just try and find a way to do it but without it breaking the idea of the knife. Like, try and think of a way, like, imagine 100 years in the future, we can do crazy shit. How would you make the design of a knife better than it is now, but in a way that makes sense, you know? And I think that if you can do that type of thinking regularly, that's how you'll start to really make designs that are not just useful, but also, you know, more than just shapes on top of an existing thing. I think also just doing something simple like breaking up this area here would look nice. It's a little bit big and empty and flat at the moment. Like something like this would be uncomfortable because it's like a thin blade coming out from the knife. So I would probably just get rid of this and I would simplify that shape because I didn't like all this hard point you have here and this small little detail. I think it looks better when it's just like this. And it looks more comfortable because before the fingers wouldn't have been very comfy. Again, I'm drawing with a mouse, so you're gonna have to watch me struggle a little bit. Yeah, whatever. It doesn't have to be perfect for a paint over. As far as the overall like large shape, you know, I think it's pretty good. The only thing I don't really like is maybe this hard angle at the edge here. But yeah, I mean, I remember, I believe you did the sci-fi crate design and you did another one as well. But from what I remember of the sci-fi crate design, it seems like you're improving. But try and focus on scale a little bit more. Like, I know it's difficult. I mean, I think a lot of people, even good people, including myself, like, I'm still learning to be better at scale all the time. It's not an easy thing to do. So, yeah, keep going. Looks good though. And I'm just gonna share ArtStation really quick. Yeah, so here's the post. I wanted to actually give feedback on the renders as well really quickly. Some of these are really cool. You definitely seems like you're understanding shapes also a little bit better. It's pretty cool. So one thing I noticed, like, watch out for too much normal map stuff like this. Like, you just have too much random texture detail and some of it is very noisy. Be careful of that. Another thing is, you know, I don't have time to go into how the relationships between HDRIs and the reflections, but try adding a bunch more small lights because basically you see these highlights here. So those are the only real like things that give me a value change or some sort of idea of the form when you're using this plastic material. And if you have more small lights, it'll give more reflections, and then the more reflections are going to help it be more clear. And then my second thought is like just try and make your colors work together a little bit better because at the moment I feel like it's very noisy and the colors of the blades feels weird. Like I would make the blades metal and then have something else have the color. Maybe or yeah, pick colors that blend together better or a different presentation. Um, but yeah, good work. So go follow this guy. All right, next thing we have here from Suristani, we have this cool design. And I think that is fucking sick. And a lot of you guys seem to do like really realistic, but basically anime swords, which is pretty cool actually, to be honest. All right, so let me pull this one up. So I mean, this render, my only critique is it's just really noisy and could definitely have some rim lighting. Um, I think my only critique, besides some of the details feel a little bit greebly, like I would like to see, and maybe that's the style that you want to go for, but I would like to see something that feels a bit more real. Like some screws, some patterns on the metal, some sort of bespoke design elements. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it looks cool. I wish that the grip was more ergonomic as well. Like right now, it's just kind of like some boxes, and especially for something this large, like I would like to see a bit more support and some thought into how you can make that serve the user better. I'm just trying to think of critique, um, because it's, you know, it's got its own style, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So like, it's kind of sci-fi. It's not really a grounded sci-fi. It's more like cool shape sci-fi with some big idea over it. So I don't. Hmm. Okay, the biggest thing that bothers me is I don't, even though the blade vibrates, like, is the blade sharp or not? And if so, I feel like it's a bit too thick to be just a blade. So I wish that maybe there was something that told me a little bit more about how that works or what the idea behind that is. In general, the object is cool. Um, I guess I would have to see the modeling itself, the viewports. Let me pause and go look through Discord really quick, if I can. Okay, so I cannot, not in this version of OBS, so I'll do this really quick. Because it makes it a bit harder to see how you're modeling and all of this when you just have the renders. So I'm sure I can find quickly. Yeah, and I also just want to say, you know, while I'm looking for this, that it was really cool to see all of the sketches you guys are doing, all of the thought you put into stuff. There's a lot of really cool ideas, so I was really impressed by just everybody, like even people who didn't submit anything, just, you know, doing different stuff. So I don't know if this is the final model. Um, this is the last one I saw. Yeah, so I guess this is the last iteration. I don't think it's the final one though. So, um, but I'll try to. Yeah, it's definitely not the final model. Okay, so I guess for me the biggest critique I have, I feel like a lot of these parts around here look a bit generic. They don't seem like okay, for example, a lot of they're not just generic, but also very similar. So if we look at this shape, like a lot of the shapes are all based on rectangles. And I feel like it's fine to do that with a majority of them, but I think you need to break it up with something unique a bit more. And it feels like you basically made some basic shapes, like this base shape, and then you put a bunch of details on top. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I would like to see a little bit more thought into the details. Like, you know, maybe this part of the blade, because there's so much pressure, maybe it has some sort of part that comes off here and clips in. Now, there's honestly like a billion things that you could do, but in general for me, I just would like to see something a little bit more unique in terms of details, because almost everything here is based on a box. But yeah, overall, it's a cool design. Viewports would definitely help me to give better feedback on this one. Good work. I really, really love that they That this one and also the one that Christian did, that you guys made basically what feels like some sort of an anime weapon. You know, like it doesn't really make sense to have a vibrating sword in real life, but it's kind of cool, either way. And I could definitely see it in some sort of an anime or something like that. And the same with this, like, yeah, I could definitely see it. That's cool. So, yeah. All right, next one. We'll just do Christian. So, Christian, I really, really like this viewport color choice. That's fucking sick. Um, Overall, the presentation's great. The idea is super unique. The handle looks comfortable to hold for the most part. Um, it feels like in certain places like it should be manufactured in a certain way. Um, yeah, I love this one. I definitely have critique, but in general, I'm really impressed with this. Like I love this. I love these joints in between them. Super unique idea. I don't understand how it would work, but I don't really care either because, it's sci-fi. Yeah, so I'm gonna critique this though. I mean, blade has some interesting shapes going on. It's pretty simple, but that's kind of what makes it cool, right? Because it turns into something else. The only thing I really don't like that much is maybe this piece here at the top. And I feel like in general some of the shapes could be a bit more polished. Like you kind of have some even divisions. I guess not even, but it's like close, like here, and then also here, and then also here. And in general, you just have like detail of a similar shape, different design of a different shape, cut out of it, and plane change of a similar volume. Like all of these are pretty similar. I don't like how this form transitions here. That's just like a hard edge. Personally, I would like to see just a small bevel or something. It feels unfinished to me. And another tip, by the way, in Fusion, you can use what's called how's it called? A chord length bevel. And so you can see this bevel here is getting smaller. So when you're using the fillet menu, just switch it to chord length rather than constant radius or something. I forget what it's called. But anyway, if you do that, it'll possibly give you a nicer bevel in areas like this. And some of these areas look pretty messy. Um, yeah, I mean overall, I think that it's definitely way better. There's things that could be maybe tighter, like, the relationship between these parts seems a bit weird. Definitely could just polish your bevels up a bit more in general, but um, to me it seems like you're making, pretty good progress, but I think a little bit more polish would benefit you. And then just details like this on the back, I feel like are a bit too concentric. Like they're all too much the same, and you have like 3 or 4 layers of it. I would try to avoid stuff like that. And yeah, like this piece, for example, just does not feel integrated at all. The button could maybe be a bit. Yeah, fuck it. The button's fine. But yeah. So I mean, overall, looking good. I don't think I have too much bit major critique for this one. I think that you could do your lighting a bit better though. Like some of them are pretty flat, or like for example, this image definitely could use a crop. It's very important, for everybody here to think about how you crop your images. It's one of the most important things. And with stuff like props and such, you want to give the object as much screen space as possible. And so like watch out for too much dead space like this. And it'll help to focus the viewer's attention a lot more. And also, I would even consider like I think you could make your images a little bit brighter and like get some more like you have places that are really bright, but it's completely blown out and noisy. I try to watch out for this. Like when you have stuff reach pure white, it looks blown out, and I think it'd be better if on this image in this design the brightness was kind of along the edges of stuff and more like a rim light rather than something else. So yeah, this image would be pretty hard to fix actually, just because of that. But try and like bring the attention towards the start and ends of things. So like the main thing in the focal point corner and then another bright area at the bottom. So that way the eye is attracted to the two most important things. And then yeah, placing logos nicely. So there's equal distance here and here. I think also, I don't know if you know this, but it's a really important thing, is just remove like even just like 2 to 3% of that black. So there's nothing pure black in your image will help make it feel like a lot more professional really quickly. But yeah, cool work. Go check out this guy's ArtStation. It's awesome. Cool shapes. All right, so let's see. We have 2 left. All right, we got Cody and then Stefan. So let's do Cody's next. All right, Cody, let's see what you got. All right, so first thing, I just want to talk about your renders first. I think that you have a similar thing, like yours could just be a little bit brighter and it'll be way more impactful. And the importance of doing post work can never be overlooked. So just even adding some simple brightness in the right areas here makes a huge difference on how impactful your art is going to be. So I would say basically the same for all of your images. Like when I do these graphic things, I try to make them pretty bright and do some post work on them. Like even this actually already looks cooler just by upping the saturation, you know, maybe adding some detail, some sharpening, and then doing some like kind of silly color grading. And some brightness. But I think it'll just make your images pop more, because like here you can see it's kind of dark and dim, and then here it's like really bright and in your face. I don't know what's I don't know what the I'm trying to read your text in the background, but I personally not a huge fan of like the lightning in the back. I don't know if it's supposed to signify something, but I would generally try to keep the background a bit more scaled down or more muted. But it's, you know, it's graphic renders, have fun. But I'd work on the graphic design a little bit. Yeah, so as far as my render critique, I would say pretty much all of the renders could use some post work. Let me and I feel like this noisy green background here is definitely a bit too crazy for me. I would definitely tone it down. So I think this one has some cool potential because you could mix, like you kind of have purple in it, but I think you could push it even more. So like up the brightness, reduce the contrast a little bit. And then you can turn on like clarity or something to get that crunchiness back. And then let's see, what else should we do? up the detail just a little bit. And then we can go to color grading. And then in this case, maybe just in the highlights, add some purple. Just a small bit, and then color mixer, and we'll change the hue of the blue. But this is all kind of personal opinion sort of stuff. But I think you could just work a little bit harder to get some of your colors to kind of have rhythms. I don't even know how to describe it, but just make them work a little bit better, more complementary. You know, being aware of how saturated stuff is, how bright things are, just having better color harmony. The colors are fine, but they feel a bit not even pastel, like I guess it's like schoolyard, school kids kind of color a little bit, just a little bit, like very primary. And my personal, opinion is I'm not a huge primary colors fan, so it's a bit of a biased critique. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the design. So I can see some familiar shapes, but yeah, in general, actually I don't know if I have a viewport for this guy. I don't think I do, so let me just look really. Actually, I do. What am I talking about? All right. Yeah, let's open up this viewport. Let's just take a look at this and make it a little bit brighter so I can see it better. Remove some of the blacks. There we go. I can see it. So, modeling. No major complaints. But still, though, on a design level, I would really like to see a better understanding of how to mix things together. Because you're able to make, it seems, more complex-ish shapes. But then when it comes to how certain parts are mixing together like this, I don't really like how it just feels. I wouldn't say, okay, lazy sounds very negative. I don't mean it lazy. But it doesn't feel very premium. And I'm not saying everything needs to feel premium. I kind of like that it goes over the axe, but I think that if you were to redo it, it would be cool to see something where the plane changes of the axe, and I wouldn't necessarily do it exactly like this, I'm just trying to demonstrate the point, where the shapes of the axe and the shapes of the axe, what's the word? The axe handle, I guess, or connecting area. If they had some sort of a more strong relationship, and so they shared like maybe similar plane changes, because I think when you're designing, it's always important to try and limit the amount of design elements, or even if you have a lot of design elements, like really focus on how they work together, how the forms will, combine with each other and create a nice, beautiful shape. And then so that's just like a small thing. I think you could do that across the model wherever things are meeting. The next thing I'd like to talk about is just the scale of stuff, like details. So my axe I made, let me see if I can find it really quick. I'll have to open this on another page. One moment, don't get bored. I'll tell a joke so that it's something to entertain you while you wait. Why did the chicken cross the road? So I don't have my axe here, I guess. But I do have it in the Discord, so give me one moment. I will have it here somewhere. Alright, there it was. Yeah, so like the whole point of my axe is that it's extremely large. Like it's meant to be held by a mech and its fingers clip in. And so like these are rockets basically. And so this thing is supposed to be gigantic. Like absolutely gigantic. And so for me the only reason, even then when stuff is like details and all of this stuff is really important for scale, and even this the scale isn't that great. But the point is like the only reason I can get away with this is because I'm trying to make the details small to fit a design need and to fit a purpose. And I feel like if this is a human-sized axe, which I'm not sure, um, these details are far too small. And as a result, it just kind of feels nonsensical. And I think that's just a general thing. Like here, for example, and I would try when you're making shapes like this, try and give a little bit more space in between the lines and edges of stuff, just so that there's a little bit more breathing room. Like really pay attention to the small spaces in between stuff, all the way down to the little details. Like a lot of the spaces in between these parts feel very narrow and very small. And like sometimes they meet on the same line, like here. And like here is nice because this is like equidistant across this curve. But here then again it gets like really tiny, and it would be nice to have a little bit more breathing room. You know, think a little bit more about when you place a detail, what does the edge around it look like? How does, like here for example, it's like cutting on this. I would move it here so that way it doesn't have like some sort of a tangent or hitting another bevel somewhere. This is fine because this is meant to be on the edge, but in general, pay a lot of more attention to this stuff. Like I see you're doing it in some places, but it'll definitely make your designs feel a lot nicer. And if you're gonna have stuff like triggers, I'm not sure what this is, but just try and give a little bit more thought into what exactly the function of stuff is. Overall, you know, you've interesting forms, interesting shapes in some areas. I think you still have a lot to learn as far as, or there's a lot you could do rather to make stuff kind of go together better. Like even for example here, you know, I think the plastic really should acknowledge this curved shape somehow, and instead it has a completely different shape. Like it does kind of respect it, but not really. And I think you could do a lot more to make your shapes flow together. And just maybe reduce the amount of parts you have. But yeah, so it's looking good. Just a, you know, a few simple things that I think if you work on, it'll make a big difference in the quality of your work. So, looks cool. All right, I believe the last one is Stefan. And Stefan, I have to say, the idea is fucking sick. It's unique. I love it. I love this. I love the presentation. I love the renders. I love the idea. And I love the silhouette of the knife from above. My biggest critique on the presentation and what drives me really crazy is when I see faceting. I'm assuming that you maybe did some work in ZBrush and then imported it or something and it broke the smoothing, but all of the faceting along this curve really bothers me a lot. But that's just a small thing, so it's not really that important. Um, so the design is a bit more simplistic, or rather, you know, product designy. Yeah, I can see more smoothing groups here. This bothers me a lot, actually. But because it's, a bit more product designy, it's hard to, there's not a whole lot of like glaring issues and like places for mistakes, but overall, I love that this proportion is larger than this one. I like the thinness of the plastic. I like the choice of a subtle plane change here. I like the small accent detail. I like the square detail here. Um, I'm not a huge fan of these boxes. They seem just kind of generic and random. Same thing with kind of all of these circular details here. I think it would be nice to see something a bit more unique. Like you could even think about something interesting and bespoke, which is my new favorite word, by the way. Like for example, you have these nice lines here coming from the blades. Like think about if you were to make some sort of design that continues that flow. So for example, to connect maybe to the base, you had some sort of angled part. Like that would already instantly continue that flow and give it something a bit more unique, you know? You have some sort of connecting detail. I don't know what. And then thinking about maybe making the handle flow up to meet that so it'd be more comfortable as well. And you could kind of interlock these shapes here. So I think it's really important to think about this type of stuff and avoid making too generic of details like these boxes and kind of the what's it called, like the gear pattern. I really dislike gear patterns, but that's just me because I hate steampunk with all of my heart. Um, let's see. I'm not a huge fan of the three dots at the bottom. I think maybe I don't know where the blood gets collected, but it would be nice to see maybe some sort of shapes that feel a bit more like they're meant to collect blood, like angular, possibly, and and then maybe it has like a hole in it at the bottom, but some sort of a teardrop shape of some kind, I think will help to make your design feel a bit more realistic and interesting and unique and less simple to model. I, the blade looks hard to model, but yeah, I see it unscrews. Either way, even though this thing unscrews, I really wish that you could have made that handle and blade connection a little bit different. It feels a little bit like a lightsaber at the moment. Presentation is great. I love this blood presentation here. Super cool. The only thing that was bothering me, I'm still trying to figure out, because I don't even know the answer to it yet, is like, how do you protect that glass from breaking? Like, I was trying to decide, would it make more sense? Because, like, you don't have, for example, like any real tolerance between the DNA collector and the 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 blood collection rod. And I wonder if having more space or less or just reinforcing it would be better, like putting metal around it. But it's like a super small detail. It doesn't matter, but that was just me thinking about it. One last quick thing. Cropping. I think this is honestly a waste of an image because it's just too simple to be worth showing by itself. And I feel like this one is too small. So you could either mix these together into one image, kind of like that, or just to make the crop better. Excuse me. Because at the moment, yeah, it's like takes up almost none of the screen, and so it's not going to be very impactful when you are presenting it on your ArtStation. It won't really do justice. Same thing here. Just try and crop your stuff a little bit and think about, how much wasted space there is, if any. And Yep, try and maximize that useful space. And take a look at how other people are doing it. I mean, sometimes it's nice to have breathing room. Absolutely. But sometimes it's also nice to have a lot more concentrated, especially in today's day where everybody's using smartphones and we are looking at stuff on small screens oftentimes, or like on Instagram, whatever. People need as much image in the frame and as much content in that frame as possible. So you don't want to waste that stuff, that space, that impact potentiality. Um, yeah, I mean, the design isn't super complicated in terms of what's going on, but what's there I like. Um, excuse me. I guess I see that this is part of how the sheath connects. That's cool, but I still think that you could connect it in a more interesting way with less generic details, but awesome work, really. Yeah, it's great. The blood collection idea really puts it quite way over the top, so cool. Fix those facetings though, please. All right, yeah, thanks for, just checking and make sure there's nothing I can't show before I click. Yeah, so thanks for listening to all this feedback. Hopefully it's helpful for you guys. Again, feel free to join the next challenge. It's going to be a bit more open-ended, and hopefully that's not too free for people. Hopefully people kind of like the freedom, being able to pick what they make. Um, like I said, just some, shirts and Corona masks, presents and whatever, or, for winning prizes. And then on Discord, just feel free to join up, and you can see in the Discord and also on the blog's post on ArtStation, you'll be able to see the place where you submit all of the files. In the link below, there will be a link to my Discord and my Patreon. You don't need to be part of the Patreon, I don't think, to join the challenge anymore, so anybody can. And yeah, sorry for taking so long to get this video out. I've just been extremely busy. Hopefully next time it won't be too much later, but yeah. And again, thanks to everybody for all of the hard work that you guys put into these design challenges, because there's just so much sketches, so much people trying to problem solve, and yeah, it's really cool to see. It's really inspiring, and some of you guys, make me feel like I'm getting old. So it's cool, and I'll see you guys in the next challenge. Just join up.